Hi, Lisa.
Hey.
I know you're a senior facilitator of the Living Inquiries and you're also a trainer. So I
Yeah.
just thought we'd have a wee bit of a conversation about your experience. When I was thinking about this, I was actually genuinely interested in how this has evolved for you. And because I don't think I don't remember actually ever really asking you that before. Like I know it says on your profile on the Living Inquiries website what your passion about the Living Inquiries but how did you become passionate about it?
Yeah. So my passion is really about connecting to truth. like so and I think in the early days, I don't know if I would have called it that, but I was seeing so I got my MSW years ago and was already involved in interpersonal work in the areas of addiction and whatnot. And what I was seeing didn't seem to be working. So I left the interpersonal world, kind of went macro into big picture stuff. And then years later kind of came back to micro or interpersonal work because I'd had some insights. I'd had some visions into what might be possible with regards to people connecting more into their well-being, or people just connecting into a life that they were happy about, or was the life they wanted to have. Yeah. And basically that was guiding people into what they were telling me and guiding them using their experiences into their own experiences. So like they would share things with me, and then I would ask certain questions that they hadn't thought of themselves, and hold space for the answers to come, and then ask more questions. And so this matrix started to become alive. The matrix of a person started to become alive. And that was kind of my passion, is that I was able to see that we all have matrices. We all have a complex web of existence that goes before birth, really, even to current day, and has lots of tendrils and lots of dynamics. And it's not linear. It's not logical. It's not simple, So my passion is really helping people connect to their own matrices, their own alivenesses, their own histories, their own psyches, what makes them them, and to help them have more clarity with regard to what makes them them, so they can then make conscious choices and have a conscious participation in life with more intimacy with themselves.
I loved how you just described that there, when you use the term like the matrix and that it's not logical, because I would use that in my own referencing for this work myself, that it's not logical. And I wonder, do you find that it might take some people a while to trust in that because it's not logical? Or
okay. Absolutely. I mean, as a culture, we're very much driven by logic, by our minds, by sense making, analytics. 1 + 2 = 3.
Yeah.
And of course we are. We all of our strategies will often be geared towards that making sense aspect of our brain. And so then the other part of our brain, which is more in the curious realm or holds spaciousness or whatnot, is a little less used in our culture. Yeah. So it takes a while to trust that part of us, that component of us. Yeah.
So that's where that would come from then, that other part of the brain?
Yeah, so the one part is more logical and linear, and one part is more spatial. And and it's obviously not that cut and dry, but they have to work together. But as a culture, we're pretty much the one over the other. We have an imbalance in that way. We need a balance. We need analytics. We need logic. We need to make sense of things in a certain kind of way, right? In a practical kind of way. But when we're talking about our well-being, or things like love or happiness, or then we can't use logic, right, to connect to those really big heartfelt topics. We can't use our brains to figure out the heart. Darn it.
It's like it's far beyond that, isn't
It's
it?
far wiser than that. Yeah. The heart is so much wiser. Like our beings are so much wiser than analytics.
Yeah.
And that's hard. It's hard to let go of that analytical or that meaning making, figuring out, fixing part of us, to trust that there's something wise in that if we let go, we'll come upon it, or it will come upon us, however you want to look at it.
Yeah. In my experience with this work, when that trust starts to build, it opens up. It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like magic. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like life transforming, really. It becomes then the new norm, actually, which is cool. It becomes more of the new norm after a while. I mean, I can really start to feel the contrast between when I'm not in that flow, so to speak. And I start to come into more of fear-based strategies that I've had. Boy, I can really feel that contrast because I'm so used to another way now. But when I started out, that's all I knew. That's all I was very familiar with that. And it took a little like prying the fingers off, to let go of, and sometimes my fingers still pry, but a little less so.
Yeah, I loved how you explained all of that. I wonder, is there anything else you'd like to say about it?
Well, I mean, I think like I was thinking earlier about curiosity. Curiosity for me, I write a lot about curiosity in my blog posts, but
Right.
Curiosity for me it's an interesting thing, because right now where I am in life, like it's really important. It's really crucial to be aligned with the energy of curiosity. But I was thinking this morning that for a while it was scary. It was scary. It was unfamiliar. It was, I wasn't really so into it. So it's like curiosity kind of has this good rap of yum and yay. But I remember a time when it didn't feel that way, because when we're curious, especially in the beginning, we're curious to not find the answer. We're curious to see what comes, right? And again, most of us have been raised in a culture where there are the answers, or we want to have certainty. We want to know. We don't want to just live in limbo, right? And so for me, it's like a sense of agency started to build when I was willing to be curious and be okay not knowing the answers. But for a while, it was pretty terrifying to not have the answers. Not that I ever really did, but I sure did have a good strategy going that let me think I did, So I think like curiosity is powerful, but it's also not easy, and I guess I just want to throw that out there, because there can be so many spiritual expectations or spiritual ideas of how we should be and what's good and bad and da 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 da. And curiosity is a common or a popular topic in this realm, I think, and it is amazingly important, and it's not easy. It can be challenging to move towards that direction, and I just have compassion for that.
I'm glad you said that it can be challenging, because in my experience that I have found that to be the case also.
Yeah.
Would you say that the inquiries would have supported that curiosity in its growth? Or
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think at heart the inquiries is based on curiosity, not linear tools or techniques as much as being supported to look without knowing where one will go. And for me, the people that I worked with that weren't always from the Living Inquiries community, but were all somatic based, they taught me how to feel safe enough to ask questions. Like I literally had to be guided and held while they asked questions, and I didn't know the answers. And they would teach me how to hold that space, or how to feel safe in that question asking process. And ideally, as facilitators, we do the same. We very artfully ask questions and hold space as our clients consider, the unknown, right?
Yeah. And we don't know either.
We don't know either, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it really takes a lot of trust in this. We have to have trust that, and without this, no agendas, no linearity, no, like we're in it together, right?
Yeah.
like this, like our conversation. We don't know where we're going. Like we don't know what's happening. Like we're just like listening to each other and
Yeah.
hearing and exchanging and seeing what happens, right?
Yeah. I have an image of a certain spiritual teacher, and it's like doing something in order to get to this certain um, exceptional heavenly place where what I find very freeing about this work is that there's, like you just said, there's no agenda to
Yeah.
for any of that, which can be very liberating in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Those agendas are, I mean, we all have them in some ways, so for sure I've had, as a client or as someone doing healing work, I've for sure had agendas, fierce agendas, agendas I had no idea that I had. And, over time I was able to ask myself questions about them and had support in exploring them. So it's normal for a client to have agendas, and ideally, again, as facilitators, we just hold space for those agendas to gently explore what's bound to them, see what's possible, in the mix of all that. Agendas are pretty oppressive, like ultimately. So but we don't really see that because we use agendas to safeguard ourselves. We use all these spiritual ideas and other ideals and beliefs and whatnot to kind of hold on, which is understandable, right? So of course we do. And they oppress us. They keep us limited, right? So having that safe space to peek out is pretty awesome.
Yeah, from my own look in earlier on, I was noticing some anger that had been there.
Oh, anger. Yeah.
Anger, yeah. When I noticed the actual feeling of it, the oppression in the feeling, was it's kind of like a little shocking to see it, see how that unconscious behavior, that innocent unconscious behavior has been playing out.
Yeah, and for me, so I tend towards like not wanting to feel uncomfortable.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe somebody else has that too. So I'll kind of, my system will try to do whatever it takes to not feel uncomfortable.
Right.
And there's actually oppression in that, right?
Yes.
So it's really been interesting to feel when anger comes up in me or a clenching comes up in me. My system has been programmed to figure out how to disperse it, how to get out of it,
Yes.
Real cleverly, right? So I feel good. So I feel comfortable. So my path lately is to really go into the clenching,
right,
to go into the anger. And it does feel oppressive. So of course I don't want to go into that, right? But I also understand my patterning. So it's been really interesting to purposefully or consciously go into that pressing, to really let the oppression in my system feel itself, have the time and space to be itself, without me trying to maneuver it or manipulate it out. It's super counterintuitive, but I have, just because I've been doing this a while, I have a lot of trust in allowance, right? And I have a lot of trust in the counterintuitiveness of allowance. So I just, as I go in and let the pressing press or the tightening tighten or the anger, it always does change. It always transforms. Like that anger and oppression in my system has its own wisdom. It leads to something else when I stay with it. And so it's like it's a cool conversation to have, because oppression can look so many ways, right?
Yeah.
Trying to be peaceful and loving can be so violent, so oppressive, right?
Yeah.
And of course, just being angry all the time is super oppressive too, right? So it's like it's not this linear, logical, this or that. It's like, that, and that too.
Yeah. Fantastic, Lisa.
you.